2 p.m. This is Thursday. I'm Fred McMurray, which means this must be...
Pillars of franchising. Pillars of franchising.
Yes, folks, I'm with my co-host Ray Pillar, and we've got a phenomenal guest today, which we're going to let Ray mangle his name so I don't have to, and it'll be another win in Ray's column of mangling names. Ray, how you doing, and where are you? What's the weather like?
Well, I am at home, and the weather is a beautiful 86 degrees, sunny. We've had some fantastic weather here in Aurora, near Chicago. And I was out on Lake Michigan with a friend yesterday, enjoying the beautiful scenes from the lake, looking over Chicago. And I thought it was really fantastic. It's the first time I've been out there. The weather was absolutely perfect. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. It was sunny. And a lot of people out on the lake. So right now, like I say, I'm back at home, and I think next week there's a possibility I'll be at a campground and doing the show. But other than that, that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you don't have snow. We've been dealing with the Big Sur fire, which is about 90 miles north of us. And I gotta tell you, it smells like a bonfire outside. Even down here, it smells like a bonfire, and the sun isn't orange. Quick shout out to our co-host Elizabeth Denham. She's not feeling well today, so she won't be joining us. But we want to send a good get well soon wishes to Elizabeth. We miss you. So, Ray, you want to introduce our guest?
Certainly do. I'd like to introduce David Kajganich. Did I do it okay, David?
You nailed it. Kajganich is correct.
All right. And David is he's very interesting. He is one of the first franchisers of Buffalo Wild Wings, and he now owns 7 locations, and that is phenomenal. You know, it's difficult to own one location of anything, and you own 7. And also, you are a leadership guru. Is that correct? How do you? I don't know how you want to.
I don't know. Guru is a lofty term, but let's just say I'm very interested in leadership, and it's what I base everything on. Absolutely.
So one quick correction to what Ray said. You weren't one of the first. You were the first, were you not?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yes. Sorry.
That's all right. My wife and I were the very first franchisees of what was then called BW3. Now it's Buffalo Wild Wings. So, yeah, the very first one. And as far as the 7 locations, boy, that's been a winding road, but that's where it sits today. And I'm actually, I actually joined with another franchisee at some point, and he's, we're partners in it together. So he's a good friend of mine. He's a great story, good friend of mine. We're college baseball teammates, and we kind of built our own organizations, and we combined them, and Ken Brown is his name, and he's the majority partner at this point in time, and we have 7 locations we operate. Yep, absolutely.
Having a partner in business is worse than having a wife.
Not with us. It's been a dream. We talk all the time. We wish we'd have done it 20 years ago. Absolutely.
You have to have a very special relationship with your business partner.
Yes. And we do. As I said, we've known each other since our college days. So it's worked out great.
Fantastic.
That wife comment's going to come back to haunt you. It will, my friend. That wife comment will come back to haunt you. If nothing else, I'll make sure of it. Go ahead.
Well, I've had a wife as a business partner.
I know. So You missed the first question.
And as have I.
Ray,
So-
you missed our first question.
Actually,
You didn't ask
I
him
missed
the
the
correct
first question?
No, Ray missed asking the first questions. I mean, come on, dude. We don't know where he is or what the weather's like.
all right. I
we
was
can't-
concentrating so hard on making sure I pronounced his name correctly that I forgot to ask you, David, where are you and what's the weather like?
Oh, awesome. Yes. I am actually in Cleveland, Ohio, North Royalton, Ohio, to be specific, which is a suburb of Cleveland. The weather is absolutely gorgeous, believe it or not. And it's been gorgeous all summer long. It's about 80 degrees, perfect sunshine, no breeze, just feels fantastic out there. But that's kind of the way it's been all summer. You know, it's just been a fantastic summer. And unfortunately, we know what's coming at us around the pike here in a few months, which, you know, the nights are getting a little bit, you know, days are getting a little bit shorter, getting darker a little bit earlier. So we know it's coming, but we're enjoying it, you know, while we can.
What's
Yeah, I'm
coming in
looking
a couple
forward
of
to it,
months?
David. Not like somebody.
What was that? What's
A
that?
little bit of
coming?
winter.
It's called winter, and it's gorgeous when the snow is blanketed with, the ground is blanketed with snow, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous until it turns into snort.
Exactly.
That's exactly it.
And folks, don't
That is
worry.
exactly it.
I will be in Chicago in December. A heart attack couldn't stop me 2 years ago. I'll be there no matter what the snow is in December. So I still get to enjoy your lovely snow. I don't like it, but no Chicagoan does. They say they do, but they
My
don't.
kid Fred all the time that he doesn't have weather. You know, it's always sunny in Southern California. He doesn't have weather.
No.
We enjoy our weather here in the Midwest.
Well, enjoy is a stretch, but let's just say we acknowledge the weather.
There you go.
So you fool yourself into saying we enjoy it. Yeah, that's it. Now we can go to Pillars of Franchising. We finished Pillars of Weather. So now take your question.
So you started your own little business while you were in college. Is that what you just said?
No. That's my current business partner. That's where we met. You know, but
okay.
yeah, we met each other in college, and actually we're college teammates, and we're just great friends. And then after college, we went our own separate ways, and I would say about I think it was 8 years after college. That's when we started, my wife and I started the first franchise, bought the first franchise. And a couple years after that, I kind of told him, hey, we got this thing going on. He came up and he started his, and then we both built our own little organizations. And as I said, maybe 20 years later or so, we combined. We'd look at each other and say, why didn't we do this right from the beginning? But didn't have the experience, and really, we just dove in and did our own thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everybody knows about Buffalo Wild Wings. It's a pretty successful franchise. So what does it take, how should I put this? To be the first of a franchise out there takes a lot of guts. Can you give me, some background? What made you take a chance on this particular franchise and invest into it?
Well, there's that old saying is you don't know what you don't know, right? So that would fall into that category. I mean, to make a real long story short, or at least somewhat interesting here, is back then, which was 1991, 92 time, because we opened in 92, so we discovered it in 1991.
Okay.
I was working for a Fortune 500 company at the time, and I was a supervisor in the company. And I remember we had a lunch with a couple of other supervisors, and it was an odd question. Somebody asked me, "What do you want to do?" I went, "That's it. Okay, let's talk about that." And I just blurted out. I mean, keep in mind, we're in the fast track of a big company, so we had promotional opportunities and all those things. And so I thought it was an odd question, but it just came right out of my mouth almost immediately. I said, I want to own a sports bar. And at that time, they weren't as prevalent as they are today. So I had gotten promoted and was transferred down to Columbus, and that's where I met my wife. And I happened to ask my wife, where do you get good wings here in Columbus? And she asked her brother. Her brother said BW3, and we went down there, and they had a little sign on the back behind the counter. It said, probably handwritten for all I remember, and said, "For franchise information, call." And we called and had no idea what we were getting into. And it's a true entrepreneur story where we're going to do this no matter what. We didn't have any money, put the franchise fee on a credit card, sold everything we had. It had a garage sale, sold our house, sold cars, sold everything, quit everything. And moved up to Cleveland, looked for a location, and lived in a small bedroom in my grandmother's little 1,200 square foot ranch, and that's how it started. I mean, we were bent on making sure we were successful, but looking back on it, knowing what we know now, yes, it was gutsy, and yes, we didn't have all the information we should have had to make a proper decision, but we were going to make it work no matter what.
That's an amazing story, and I guess my story could be similar to a certain degree in that I invested everything that I had plus, and it was gutsy as well, but your success, and I consider myself successful at my franchise, which is a Maid home cleaning service, and it's over the years we've expanded, and as you have expanded, and that's the way it needs to happen. And I think one of the things I'd like to discuss with you a little bit is, why do you think you have been so successful in that? And I want to kind of lead you in the direction of leadership. How has your leadership skills helped you be so successful?
Wow, that is a great question, and do you mind if I answer it in maybe two different parts? Absolutely, please. So, initially, what I would attribute our success to was, I always joke around, I said it was fear, right? I mean, we left perfectly comfortable jobs with benefits, with I was supposed to be a vice president of a company in 3 years, and we left all that security, so-called security, as people would say it, and everything we owned plus some, right? So we opened up a business, and we opened it up in an area that was kind of a touristy or very popular, trendy place, but it starts usually in May when it starts getting real popular. Well, we didn't open up till July. So we opened up, and again, remember, we're out of money at this point in time. I could go into a real long story about that, eating bologna sandwiches out of cars while everybody else is going to other restaurants. But we opened up, and we're excited and nervous. And all we did was watch all these people walk by our building, walk by our place. They had already had their routines and where they, where they always went to already embedded. So it was a struggle to begin with. And I remember we just basically told our family, friends, everybody, hey, this is our life 24/7. If you want to see us, you're going to have to come down and visit us there, because we're not going to be available for anything. So, the fear was, you open up a new sports bar, and you owe several $100,000. You don't have a penny to your name, and you have no idea if you're doing good or not. You start doing some sales, and you're a rookie in business, and all we knew was we were going to make it. We were going to survive. Yeah. So as far as the success, what drove that is I say fear jokingly, but it was really just hard work and a relentless desire to be successful and persistence, I call it now relentless persistence. I tell everybody that's key to success in anything. It's relentless persistence. You're going to get hit with obstacles. You have to overcome them. So if you're going to say leadership, I would say the first 10, 15 years, maybe, I don't know if I would consider myself a great leader. I was more of a manager at that point in time. And there's a big difference. I'll talk about that in a second, between a manager and a leader. And I would say I was a manager. I came, just like anybody, you have a certain perception of being a manager, being an owner, being a leader. And I don't think I was back then. I think, in some aspects, sure. But in most aspects, when I look back on everything I've learned and what I teach now, I was doing a fraction of it. I might have been, kind of successful in leading people almost in spite of myself, just from different other skills that I had acquired. But I wouldn't say I was a great leader back then. I think I was a pretty good owner and a pretty good manager of the business, pretty good systems operator, pretty good with people. Don't get me wrong, but I build teams a whole lot differently now than I did back then. So, answer your question.
The thing about being a leader, though, is most good leaders don't even know they're good leaders. Until someone actually points it out to them. I tell my management staff all the time, if you have to tell somebody, hey, I'm the boss or I'm the manager, you're not. They should know that. It should be instinctive. And I feel the same way with, great leaders. I think that is just something that is, you do build it over time, and reading books like we basically discussed a little bit, like this one here, is fantastic. It helps you out if you're starting a business, and you need to go ahead and delve into those ideas about being a great leader, and in order to be successful.
No question. Again, that comes from self-motivation to want to grow, to want to get better, to kind of a self-evaluation of where am I and where do I want to go and how do I get there. And it's funny you showed that book, because that was the catalyst. 21 Laws of Leadership. John Maxwell took me to becoming a member of the John Maxwell team and really just learning. I feel very privileged to be able to learn at the hand of John Maxwell. I really do. Yeah. He's written hundreds of books. Just was named the winner of a Horatio Alger Award, and so I've really kind of. One thing about me is if I latch onto something, I'm going to go do a deep dive in it, and that became my focus. Is okay. How do I make myself a better leader, and then how do I pass on those traits to my managers, my team, so that we have a leadership culture in our restaurants as opposed to a management culture. Mm-hmm. And that was so passionate about doing that, because it's so different. I mean, we're not in that, iron age or industrial age where a manager just kind of was in authority because of their position, and people had to respond to them because that was their position and they had to. Today, people want to be led, right? They don't want to be managed, and they want to believe in the person that's leading them. So those are different skill sets, and I think a lot of people take them for granted. But it takes work to develop those. It takes an understanding, it takes an awareness, and then you have to apply it.
And the thing about being a great leader, it actually makes your job easier. Because you're not constantly striving to manage something. You're having other people do that through your leadership, and your job becomes so much easier.
It's exactly what I tell everybody is this is how to make your life easier as a manager, because in the restaurant business, in any business, middle management is very difficult. Any management's difficult. Yeah. But in the restaurant business, if you're dealing 95% of your job is dealing with people, whether it's the guests, whether it's your team, whether it's the other managers, whether it's the owner, whether it's the regional manager, whatever you're dealing with. And if you don't have those people skills, those soft skills, those leadership skills, your life's just going to be difficult. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's just going to be difficult. You're going to be the one that's saying, it's complaining about your employees. This is what the thing I always laugh about. I'll get in conversation with managers of whatever, and I'll hear them complain about their employees, and I'll sit there and listen. I said, I don't get it. I said, what do you mean? Don't you have employee issues? I said, well, yes. I said, but you have to lead, have to be a leader and lead them through it. I said, so my question to you though is you hired them, you trained them, and now you're complaining about them, but that means you kept them. So why would you keep somebody that isn't fitting your culture? But they do it because, truthfully, they're afraid to make those changes. And I believe that if they would take the time to develop their leadership skills, and that includes being a great manager. You can't be a great leader and not be a good manager. You can be a great manager and be a very poor leader. That can. But if you're a great leader, you're also a great manager. And that's true. And that's what I tell everybody. I says when you're a great leader, you're going to be able to make those management decisions much easier. And that might mean changing out staff, making those, being clear on the changes you need to make to improve the business.
Fred wants to ask you a question.
Well, before we do that, since it's now that point in time, we'll go do a commercial.
Hey, franchise owners. How's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments, views? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvyne, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvyne.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvyne with a Y.com.
And we want to remind our listeners that they can dial in or call in at 323-580-5755. That's 323-580-5755. And Heidi, our technical producer, will talk to you and get your question on the air. Or you can chat at either the pillarsoffranchising.com or the linklocalnetwork.com, and we'll get your questions on the air. And we want to give a shout out to FeedSpot for ranking us as one of the top 20 franchise podcasts you must follow in 2020. And Ray, tell me, what number are we?
Now, you said one. We're not one of. We are the number one.
Go us. Thank you. So, other than being very happy about that, so David, you've been a franchisee for a long time. I want to go and drill into the second pillar, which is that stage when people, those first couple of years, the first 1 to 3 or 4 years where everything seems to go crazy. And it's the mentoring, support, and training. What were your experiences like in getting mentoring, especially as the first franchisee? There couldn't have been a lot of mentoring and support already in existence from the franchisor since you were number one, much like we are in the franchise podcast.
Actually, that's an interesting way that you put it. And I would say it was just the opposite. And what I mean by that is we had absolutely tremendous, phenomenal, personal, caring support because we were the first ones. And the original owners, because now it's changed hands a couple of times, but the original owners were so invested in everybody's success. And when I joked around about saying we didn't know what we didn't know in the beginning, it was really because they were as fledgling as any franchisor also. So, we didn't know how strong they were financially. We didn't even think to ask. We knew they had 7 locations and we were the first franchisee. But they were so vested in making sure that we were successful that they went over and above on their training. They basically held our hands through everything, and they were always there for us. And they just didn't have a lot of the sophistication of the systems, right? And I think that's what a lot of people, when they get into franchising, they look for. What are the systems? As far as we're concerned, the systems were great for what we knew and what we needed. Now you look back on it over the years and the evolution, and those systems might as well have been like first grade as into master's level education. But we didn't know at the time, and it worked at the time. So the care and the support was there. We just weren't very sophisticated in what we were doing then. And the brand has evolved so much over the last 28 years. It's not even the same brand.
So as a follow-up, as you work with other types of franchisees, not necessarily Buffalo Wild Wings, but what do you see the mistakes that other franchisors, and you don't have to name any, but what do you see are mistakes made by other franchisors in that second pillar of training, mentoring, support?
That's a fantastic question, and it really depends on the industry that I've noticed, and then back up, depends on the organization in that industry. Because, my biggest thing is again, I'll always go back to training. I'll always go back to training, and I think there's some franchises out there that they're more about fast, accelerated growth as opposed to good foundational, successful franchisees. So that's always the first thing we look for. And the reason I say is because I was involved in 2 other franchisees that was all about. That's what they were all about. And the financial models didn't work, and it didn't matter. The whole goal was, let's just put up locations. So that'd be the first thing is where are they grounded? Where's their focus? And then I go back to is their focus on supporting the franchisees? I mean, I can't stress that enough, because if they're not focused on supporting franchisees, and I'm talking about whatever might be the struggle of the day, right? Because that could change. It might be, hey, the franchisee might need a lot of support in their initial location. They might need support when they go to multi-unit locations. They may need support in all of a sudden there's a downturn in the economy. How do we get through it? And we're fortunate right now. The brand that we're with is absolutely phenomenal with communication and doing and keeping everybody in a loop and making sure that we're well fortified in support. But when I talk to other franchisees, it's all over the board. And I think from a franchisee level, what most franchisees don't get is great, consistent training, especially in the area of leadership, soft skills, and people skills. They'll teach all the systems in the world. They'll have great systems. They'll tell you how to run everything, how to manage everything, how to keep the books, when the royalty checks to be sent in, or when it's going to be EFT. I mean, they make sure that's down. But we lack. I think as a general business, but especially in a lot of franchisees, they give lip service, right? If they're going to teach you 100% of the training, 5% is going to be, hey, here's how you have conflict resolution among your team or among your guests or whatever. It's the soft skill training I think most lack.
Ray?
That's true. I think some franchisors forget where their money comes from, and they don't concentrate on all the things that you just talked about. And one of the things you talked about previously was the fact that failure was not in your lexicon. It was not. It just wasn't there. And what that creates is something that I've heard other people refer to as fire in the belly. I mean, you have to succeed. There is no other option. And I think we need to get that across to some people who are in our audience who are thinking about franchising, that basically it's going to be difficult the first 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, however long it takes until your business takes root, just like a plant, and it can be difficult at times.
Well, there's no question about it. Every step of the way is going to present its own different challenges. So, to your point, extremely difficult in the beginning because the learning curve was so steep. I mean, we came from corporate jobs, and all of a sudden we're running, kind of a sports bar theme, and never even thought about running a restaurant before, so or a bar before. So we had to learn everything. And then here's where a lot of people miss, and I see this too because it was something we struggled with in the beginning. So it took us a while to get going. So that was intestinal fortitude, and about 4 or 5 months in, we finally started seeing the corner or turning the corner and started getting some sales where we could pay our bills. Right, in the beginning, we didn't have money to begin with because we drained it because we were late getting our location open by about 4 months, so we were pretty much out of money. But so we're hanging in there with our bills, and then it kind of took off, and I think that's the reward for hard work. And I heard some people call it the whoosh effect, where you just kind of you sow what you reap, right? You just put your nose down and you keep doing it, you keep your faith, the relentless persistence, and then you get the reward. And what had happened was it became successful, and it became extremely, extremely popular, and became one of the most popular places in Cleveland by the next summer. So that fueled a lot of cash flow. And so we opened that in July of 92. December of 93, we opened up another one. December of 94, we opened up another one. In the meantime, we had 2 kids, bought a house, and moved. So, all the stressors, right? all within a couple of years. But so now we're sitting there going, this is pretty good. This is pretty cool. Except that brought a whole bunch of other challenges. Multi-unit ownership, especially in an accelerated growth pattern, isn't all it's cut out to be if you don't have the experience and are prepared for it. So that brought another set of challenges. And again, that's where I refer back to, was my leadership that great at that time? No, I was managing and hanging on by the skin of my teeth and just trying to get people to do what I needed them to do, right? I wasn't leading them. I was pretty much directing them and managing them. So when I look back, that was the next learning curve for me. And then things were pretty good. So you have a tendency then to think, this is easy now. It's always going to be good. and that is not, that could be further from the truth, because somebody said you're either in a crisis, you came out of a crisis, or you're heading to a crisis, right? And we didn't know it, but we were heading towards a crash, and we had no idea. And so about in 94 we opened up the third location. And by this time, our kids are getting a little bit busy and a little bit older, and we're busy with them. And about 10 years later, we opened up another one. And it sounds kind of strange to take that long of a gap. And when we did, it immediately crashed. And so we never saw that coming. I mean, we had some difficulties opening up the other ones, but they always took off. So this one came out of the ground. We, said, okay, we want to own the real estate, not just rent it. So we sunk, $2.5 million, bought the building, bought the property, and this is going to be great, except it wasn't. We were doing about 60% of what we needed to be, our break-even sales in the beginning. And because of that, over the next couple of years, the losses trying to sustain, we couldn't sustain those losses, and it drained our other locations. We were trying to keep them afloat. And then those of you that may have franchise agreements, listeners, whoever, we all know that we have a term on those franchise agreements. And in our term, we had to either remodel, and at renewal time, we either had to remodel to the, then current standards or relocate. Mm-hmm. Well, the new location had drained us so bad, we were pretty much out of money again. And we lost those locations, and those were the only things that were profitable in paying our bills and paying our paying our salaries. So make a long story short, at that point in time, our kids were, probably early teens at that time, and we weren't ready for this crash. But, we had lost, at that time, we lost our savings, we lost our retirement, we lost the kids' college funds, our house was in foreclosure. We're looking at, over $2.5 million of debt, and we had no income. So you ride that wave, and then all of a sudden you make that one decision, and boom, you didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And trust me, a lot of restless, sleepless nights, a lot of depressing times, moments, self-doubt. How did I get so stupid? Can I even do this anymore? All those emotions start going through your head. And I remember going into my accountant's office, and he says, Dave, can you turn this thing around? And I looked at him probably for the first time in my life. I said, I don't know. And he says, well, guess what? You're going to have to. Otherwise, this thing's going to come crashing down on you. And we did the same thing all over again, right? That was in 08. January of 09, I went back into our restaurant. I said, I can't believe how bad, how bad we're operating, but we'll turn it around. And we just dug in, did the exact same thing again. It was 24/7. Was I nervous about our kids being teenagers and never seeing their parents? Absolutely. My sister would come over, bring us some food. My mom would come over, bring the kids some food, take care of them. I mean,
back to bologna sandwiches.
We were gone. I mean, we were gone. We were going to survive again. That survival instinct kicks in. And that's why I try to tell everybody is, now all of a sudden, like I said, so, and I told you in the beginning, it kind of went up and down. We turned some restaurants around, did some other things, then we combined and did some things. But, I look back, there's a lot of mistakes I made. A lot, because I didn't have the guidance. I didn't have the awareness, more importantly. And, I tell everybody, I says, I took it for granted. I didn't have enough gratitude, so, I tell everybody, be grateful. I mean, that's the number one thing. I think everybody should be grateful for what you have, regardless of what it is. But, I learned my lessons and, never to be repeated again, put it that way.
I like the number one.
Point.
I like the number one rule of being grateful. To me, the number two rule is which you proved is being too stupid to quit.
That's correct. That is correct.
Well, that's an unkind way of putting it.
No, but I've used that on myself before. It's my own, my own detriment. Sometimes I just refuse to quit, no matter how bad it is, and you just keep going. Always the optimist, right? Always the optimist.
Well, no, you actually used a phrase earlier. Ray Kroc, at least according to sources I've seen, one of his favorite phrases was that the single determining factor to success was not talent, was not money, was not luck, was not charm or niceness or anything like that. They all helped. But the single most important factor to determining success was persistence. That if you had to walk through walls, you walked through walls and you kept doing it until you succeeded. Me, I call that too stupid to succeed or too stupid to quit. So with that note, we'll take another commercial and then come back with another question.
The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.
And we're back. So the question I want to ask is this is one we like to ask for our listeners who are looking at buying a franchise, and I seem to find them or they seem to find me. So how much cash would you tell somebody they needed to buy a franchise?
That's a great question. It's going to be determined on the franchise and that investment level. It's not someone let me back up a little bit. It's going to determine on the investment level that each franchisor requires. I mean, that's a given. Where I see so many franchisees and business owners in general, but especially franchisees, kind of trip on this is they kind of look at their investment and they look at the franchise fee itself. And the franchise fee is just, that's just extra money you're paying to get their marks and to get the systems and to get those types of things. After that, it's no different than any other business. as far as your investment level is going to take. And I think what happens, a lot of franchisees get fooled in saying, well, I bought a franchise, it's going to be successful right out of the gate, so I might not need as much working capital. Or why do I have to spend $3,500 on grand opening advertising? Well, you want to be successful, right? So whatever that advertising number was in the beginning, I always doubled or tripled it because I wanted to make sure. So I build those cash flows in, and then I because the franchise fee, that's just what it is. And then I say, and then I'll go and I'll take 6 months of cash flow, and see. Realistically, if you've done your pro formas, what you're kind of expecting. So go to a worst case scenario pro forma, build 6 months of cash flow into that, put a little bit more towards advertising. If that's an investment, not an expense, especially in the beginning. I tell everybody when they complain to about the franchisors going, oh, I've got this, ongoing, or this initial advertising expense. And I tell everybody, I said, well, how else are you going to get your business launched? I mean, just because you hung the shingle up, people still don't know what it is. You still have to make that commitment. And then I'm one of the few out there, when I look at advertising, I don't look at it as an expense. I understand it's on the balance sheet as an expense. I mean, it's an expense in the income statement. But I liken it to somebody going, if you're going to go to a bank and you're going to put in $10 and they're going to give you $100, how many times are you going to do that? You can do it all day long, right? And it's the same thing. If you've got a good advertising mechanism, why would you ever put a budget on it to say, I'm only going to spend this much? You want to keep it rolling. Now, that's a little bit different when you have the national ad funds and your local regional co-op funds. You can always question, just like where our tax money goes, how well it's being spent, right? You can question that. But if they're a strong brand and they're building the brand for you, then you can take your other dollars and you can track those really well to make sure that you're getting an investment on those dollars or getting a payback on those dollars. But as far as a number, that's going to vary with the franchise. But I always tell everybody, if you don't have, and there's different schools stuff, but if you're not willing to capitalize 6 months of cash flow to allow yourself to get started and make sure that you have a good amount that you're dedicating to making sure that you're going to advertise your business, I think you're looking at it wrong. I mean, you're expecting the shingle on the roof to carry your business. And I see a lot of people fail in that regard. They run out of money before they got a chance to make it work.
And what a shame to lose all your hard work and all your money because you only needed another dollar.
What's the gold mining thing? 4 feet from gold or whatever that was, and
yeah.
I think that's what is. I think a lot of time, a lot of people view franchising as safer, and there's statistics that could bear that bear it out, but it's not going to carry you. It's still your business. You still have to apply proper business principles to it, and if you don't, then what happens? And you get on a message board and you complain, oh, I didn't get enough support from the franchisor, which truthfully is with anything, right? We have to look in the mirror first before we take accountability.
Yeah, that's another thing I tell my managers too. I said, if you find fault in somebody, stop looking with your finger pointing out, and take that finger and point it inwardly and say, how could I have told that person differently or coached that person differently, that so that the outcome becomes more desirable. That's it's so easy to be critical. But
it really is. And when we crashed and, our family was at risk. The house in foreclosure, everything's gone. And we're trying to figure out, where are our kids going to, is our son going to have to live with his grandmother? What are we going to do with our daughter? And, and those are scary things. But what you just said, the reason it prompted this was, that's not the only time, but that's the one that always sticks in my mind, because I've used this for everything from that point on. Is we would go to turn that restaurant around, turn that sports bar around, and my wife would drive, and again, like I said, we were gone all day long, open to close, and I would sit in the passenger seat and just close my eyes and think, what do I need to do? What's the next step? How am I going to get out of this? What things do I need to change? What's it going to take? And when people are upfront and honest with themselves and ask themselves those types of questions, those deep thinking questions, they're going to get their answers. Mm-hmm. It's hard to explain, but I tell everybody, it was almost, God was guiding me. I tell everybody, I just kept coming up with ideas and kept coming up, and we just kept plugging along, and there was no way I was going to quit. But every step along the way was kind of an answer to the question I would ask. I would just close my eyes and say, what do I need to do?
Right. Yeah, setbacks and failures are part of the business, but they're only bad if you don't learn something from it.
That's correct.
That's part of life. Your entire life, you have to have these little things that could be considered bad. They could, but that's part of learning. And if you don't learn from those things, then that is the failure. It's not the fact that something bad has happened, but the failure is that you didn't learn from it.
And you know what, Ray, that's 1,000% on, because that's what led me to everything is, once we crawled out of that thing, clawed, I should say is a better word, clawed out of that hole, and it started getting successful. And then we turned another one around. We took an acquisition. The franchisor was demanding it be closed. It was in really bad shape. And then we took that one over, and we turned that around. I tell everybody, same location, same menu, same people, same stuff, but just, operated differently. So we turned that around. Then I went on my journey, because I said, okay, this is great. I have this kind of skill set, and it really comes from tenacity and relentless persistence. I get that. But now I have to become a better person, a better businessman, a better leader, so this never happens again.
Yeah.
And that's what sent me on that journey to say, okay. So I asked the question, what do I need to do to survive and make my business successful? Then the question became, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go to better myself? Mm-hmm. And that led me to, quite frankly, Zig Ziglar's corporations. I became a certified Ziglar, trainer, and then John Maxwell, and then Robert Rome through the Model of Human Behavior DISC training. And I just wanted all the information at that point in time. I wanted to be the best person I could be. I wanted to be the best leader I could be. I wanted to treat people better than they could ever possibly be treated, or think they could be treated in a business. So that took me on that journey, and I've stayed on that journey. And, if you think about, the question that you can always ask yourself, what's the one thing that you can do that can make everything else unnecessary, and that is grow yourself so you can grow others. And if you do that and you create that culture in your business, everything else goes away. Everything else just happens.
One of my favorite gurus is Stephen Covey, and one of his famous sayings is begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. And I find that has really, just keep that in the back of my head all the time. What am I doing now that's going to affect things all the way down the line when you're ready to, pull back from the business, retire, sell, or give it to your kids or whatever. It's you got to start thinking now about those things and how that's going to affect later on. And
Ray,
Fred wants to ask a question.
So no, I agree. I've been a long-term fan of Covey. Okay, and there's a large part of me that agrees with the begin with and the end in mind, and yet I see and talk to a whole lot of people that because they're because they know long-term where they want to go, they psych themselves out because they think they have to have everything perfect of where they want to be. So even they never begin. They don't take that, there's the old phrase, the journey of 1,000 miles takes the first step. So my only gripe with that is that that seems to psych out a fair number of people who are afraid to fail. And you can't let that fear of failure stop you. Otherwise, you're too smart to succeed. Sorry. All right, so
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
We'll hit another question. So my next question is kind of based on last week's show, where we were talking about the franchise disclosure document, or greatest cure known to mankind of insomnia. So what would you recommend to the 1% of franchisees who, as far as we can tell, actually read the FDD? The other 99% seem to let their lawyers do it. What are the top 3 items you'd recommend a potential franchisee to read first? Or if it's the only thing they read these 3 things in the FDD?
Well, I'm going to say this. I mean, it's been a long time since I've had to look at an FDD, right? Or UFOC, as they're called sometimes, or was back in the day. Here's the thing, though. Here's. Have I read it? I attempted to. Right, I'm going to be the good. As the first franchisee, I'm going to do everything. Right, so I'm going to attempt to read this thing. And then you pretty much say, hey, okay, where's my attorney? I need an attorney. Okay, here. Can you look over this document for me? I mean, that's pretty much how it goes. But, I've seen some really, really poor FDDs. I've seen some really, really poor, I don't want to call them misleading, because technically they can't, right? They're supposed to be filing them and this and that. But one of the things that I tell everybody is if you have an FDD with any type of earnings claims, sales, whatever, average unit volumes, those types of things, if they're disclosing them, then they have to be accurate. And that would be number one. And that might be the first and foremost, because to be honest with you, I don't know how much you can negotiate. I guess depending on your business, you might want to look at territorial restrictions. That would be the number 2 thing. And then the number 3 thing, I think that would be very important, is I'm big on saturation and oversaturation or whatever. So I would see how they want to design, how they want to grow, how they're defining their markets, and see what kind of territory restrictions, and make sure that there aren't some infringement rights that are going to impact your business. But then I go back to the earnings claims, and I'll tell maybe a tip for somebody else. I did this with one franchise we looked into, is they had an earnings claim on there, and it was great. You look at that and the average unit volume, you say, I'm buying this thing, it makes sense, it hits my pro forma. And then I just wasn't quite sure. So this is, 15, 16 years ago, different franchise, not Buffalo Wild Wings, BW3 at the time. And I got a list of the franchise names, and I put together a little survey, and back in that day it was, all mail. And I mailed them, a $20 bill. I think I mailed 100 of the franchisees a $20 bill with a survey, and asked in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and really wanted to find out what this franchisee was all about. And all the questions, support, this and that. And I put on there an average unit volume, because that was my biggest thing, because that was going to be the franchise or not. And we got a good response. Some people just kept the money and probably answered the questions or threw the questions out themselves. But that's okay. I figured it was worth the $200 investment to keep from making a tens of thousands dollar mistake. So we decided not to go forward with it, even though the surveys came back very strong, very positive. So we kick ourselves that we didn't go forward with it now. But I like that method. Any way you can get some due diligence from legitimate franchisees, the better you can do. Better you can protect yourself.
Yep.
Wow, right? That sounds like what you would say, isn't it?
It does. It does. Absolutely.
So it's now time to go down the rabbit hole. And everyone who's watching can see our really cool rabbit hole graphics, even though you guys can't. After that, Ray will get his famous last question, but now we go down the rabbit hole. And I've been actually putting forethought into this one. So my question is this. given the, as we had discussed before, the ongoing admissions by the multiple governments of the world, including the U.S., about the trueness of UFO or whatever they're calling them these days sightings, that seems to indicate that we're going to get some type of alien invasion. So my question is how will Buffalo Wild Wings go about bringing out new flavors of wings for alien visitors?
Oh my gosh. Well, they'll do what they always do. They'll go into their test kitchen and then they'll round up their test subjects, and they'll roll it out in certain locations, and then they'll test and they'll get feedback from the guests. However, it's going to be difficult because they're going to have to do it in Area 51 or some other area, right? I mean, we might not have any locations somewhere. So we're going to have to do some research to see, again, go back, what's the most, outrageous sauce that we can come up with that we might be able to entice them with. But then again, we all have some alien DNA, so maybe we can draw from that too.
That's true. It's true.
God, I love that. Excellent.
All
right, Ray.
I think to be a franchise owner, you have to have some alien DNA in you. You have to be a little crazy.
A little crazy.
I think to be a small
crazy,
business
but
owner, you got to be crazy.
I wouldn't have changed.
All right, Ray, your famous final last question.
Well, we've talked a lot about your franchise, Buffalo Wild Wings, and franchising in general. So if someone is interested in talking to you specifically about those subjects, can they call you? And if so, how would you like them to get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest way is just go to my website and get in touch with me, or email. And the website's davidkajganich.com, or the email david@davidkajganich.com. Be glad to help out any way I can, and answer types of questions. I've done it a lot for different franchisees, because if I can help somebody avoid pitfalls, then that's good. That's good, because a quote that I have that I've had kept with me since I was a teenager is, life is not important except in the impact it has on others. And a lot of people that get into franchising are making life-changing or life-risking, financial decisions. And if I can help, that's great. I don't do too much of it anymore. To be honest with you, what I do mostly is I train on, building relationships and communication, teamwork. It's everything I do in my company, and that's what I focus on. But my gosh, I'll always be able to, or best of my ability with my time constraints, help out wherever I can. I mean, because it can be a scary world for people just starting out, for sure.
Oh yeah. You have been a fantastic guest, David. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. And your information will be on our webpage. So if someone wants to get a hold of you that way, they can do that as well. So, Fred?
Yeah, Ray, it's been that time. Thanks to David Kajganich. I think I got that not too bad. This has been an awesome episode, especially for those who want to buy a franchise. So we'll be back next week with another interesting guest on
Pillars of Franchising.